Hey guys, so we have a nice light topic for you today, reality. Who fancies a bit of an existential conversation? No, we're actually going to be talking about reality from the perspective of understanding there is more than one reality, and this is really helpful for communication, for effective communication, and just getting perspective on life. I find it can be really helpful. So what I really want to talk about today essentially is that core understanding that what we view as reality is our impression, our perspective of what's happening viewed through the lens of our experiences and our past and our limiting beliefs. There's so many distortions in terms of how we see what is actually happening in front of us. And somebody else can see something completely different in exactly the same scenario. In talking about this concept before, I've been in a restaurant, I can think of one particular time, and I said to someone, we were talking about this reality and sharing your reality. And I said, okay, well, just, look over there in the corner, what can you see? And he was like, oh, okay, I see a sign, I see this, and I'm like, I see the door and the flowers. We can see, even looking at exactly the same thing, we can see something completely different. So this great little image that really encapsulated this once, and it was a man and a woman standing up across from each other, and on the floor there was, from this perspective, a 6, from that perspective, a 9. And they're both right. Both of those people are looking at exactly the same thing, and they're both correct. And that for me was just such a beautiful visual example of how we can be looking at the same thing and see it completely differently. And for me, that can also give us an appreciation of, okay, well, that's my perspective, and that another person can have a completely different perspective, and it's neither right or wrong. And the reason that I'm bringing this up in this 21 days is because in sharing our reality, it's a very effective communication tool for people to understand the different perspectives, the different ways of seeing things, and how different realities affect us and different situations affect us. So here's a really simple communication tool that I've been taught around sharing your reality. And this can be used, you change the language depending on the audience, so with a child, with your loving partner, with a friend, with a work colleague. I just don't make it sound like psychobabble if I'm using it in a work context. But this is essentially it. So firstly, when you want to speak to someone because perhaps they've upset you and there's something you really want to share with them and the impacts of what's happened. And so firstly you ask the person, have you got time and space? Can I share something with you? Using the actual psychological tool, you'll say, can I share my reality with you? Now, if they're feeling particularly vulnerable or upset, or they're angry, or they just don't have time or space, they can say no. So you respect their boundaries as well, and they can say no. Let's say, assuming they say yes, or you find a time to share their reality, you then say really specifically, when essentially the absolute specifics of when you did A, B, C, and D, when you walked in the door at 7 or 8, not when you were incredibly late again for the 5th time this week. It's, when you walked in the door at 7:10 the other day, they're really specifics. And then you talk about the experience for you. And that is, I imagined, I created, I perceived that, you were late because you don't care. And I felt, not you made me feel, really big distinction. And then I felt sad, angry, upset, confused. What were your feelings? And if you want to take this further, and especially perhaps with a partner, and this is more a psych tool, you can say, and what it triggered from my past. So if you were really upset by something that's quite little, you can own the fact that you had a strong emotional reaction because of your experiences and your understanding and when this has maybe happened in the past. So, and a really simple example, someone's late, I feel really disrespected and angry. So I could say, can I, like normally I'd say, hey, do you have a few minutes? Can I chat to you about something? You know, I'm a little upset. Do you have a couple of minutes to talk? So when you came, when you arrived half an hour late yesterday, what I made up is that seeing me yesterday wasn't a priority for you, and what I felt was sad and hurt, and then from there, and you can say, and you know, with the bloke for you, he was often really late, and in my childhood, you know, someone didn't turn up, never showed up for me, and you know, it really deeply upset me. And it's for those reasons that this was particularly hurtful for me. And then if you want to, and that's it. It's not, you shared your reality. They did a certain thing. This is how it was perceived by you. This is how you felt. They can respond. You can make up your own rules in a, you know, in a relationship for this bit, in terms of whether they're allowed to respond to you now at all, or because you're not begging for an apology. You're sharing something from the heart in terms of how someone's behavior affected you. They then have the choice to say, wow, that was the effects in a non-blaming, shaming way. They can say, oh, that's what happens to that person when I do that certain thing, and they can choose to continue doing it or not do it any further. Or they can, they could, you know, make an apology, or they can go, they could think to themselves, think whatever they think, but they might think, wow, like, that's your stuff. I'm not completely out of line, but you know, thanks for sharing. So the appropriate response is thank you, is thanks for sharing. And sometimes if it's a heated thing, that person can come back to you within 24 hours to share an apology, but not to get in for a tit for tat, because that is your reality, that is your truth, and you're owning what you made up from that event, what you made it mean, and how you made it, how you felt, like how you made yourself feel for that. You're owning that piece. That person now knows their behavior, the consequences of their behavior, and they can choose to change or not change. In a work context, you maybe don't do what I was triggered by, but it's like, can I speak with you? This is what happened. This is how I perceived it, you know, and, you know, I felt disrespected. I was angry. You talk about, you know, how you feel, and this is vulnerability and strength. And in that context, and then also what I would like to see happen, you know, so what is the outcome? Does that person need to change their behavior? Is there using another, I don't know, technology tool to overcome this problem? What is it that you're asking for is the next best thing. But you have a reality, I have a reality, they have a reality. It's really quite liberating to understand that we just have different ways of seeing the world, and it's not about right or wrong. So I hope that was helpful. It was really helpful when I learned it. And yeah, I wanted to share that with you. Also, I think it's a natural kind of build on authenticity and vulnerability and difficult conversations, and how to have those.